Healthy at Home with Bobbi Janzen.
I have a lot of people that will say, hey, Bobbi, I don't really like burpees. Well, me either, really. But there's some exercises that people just don't like. Did you know we can dissect those exercises to make your body still have some of those movements, but either simplify them or break them down? And they can be much more enjoyable too. Impact exercises are not for everyone. So thank you so much for tuning in today, because we're going to talk a little bit about jumping jacks. So if you don't know jack, you're about to. We're going to do a little bit of a warm-up to get that blood flowing. Very important to prepare the body for exercise. It helps reduce injury. It just gets us, it's like putting a coat of primer on before you put paint on. It's just a really good idea. Then we're going to move into the exercises where we can break some of these exercises apart and hopefully find a variation that you enjoy, or maybe just hate a little bit less. Then we're going to cool down the body to stretch out those muscles that we have worked. But that's not all. Stay tuned, because then we'll move into an interview portion where we're going to have wellness tips, tricks, and maybe dispel a few myths. So we're going to get to moving into that warm-up. I think maybe we will start literally with jacks. Let's just take the whole lower body out of it. How does that sound? We're going to take the lower body out of it so you can do this seated, get the blood flowing, move the arms, and then we'll slowly start to add that lower body and give different variations, and you can pick and choose and mix and match and make it your own. Form is key. Jumping jacks are a little bit more free range, but we want to keep the core engaged, and we want to make sure that our head is in line with our spine, and that we're not jumping down straight flat-footed if we choose to jump. So we'll go ahead and get moving. If you're seated or if you're standing, I'm standing on my mat right now. We're just going to work on the upper body portion. So you can have your arms hang down at your sides, and this is going to get our blood flowing. This is good because our heart is a muscle and we want to get it working as well. So we're just going to take our arms at our sides. My palms are facing the outside of my thighs. And I'm going to keep my palms facing kind of a downward motion as I raise my arms straight up to the sides. They're straight out of the shoulders at shoulder height with my palms facing down. And I'm going to lower them. Okay, step one, not so terrible. Can you do it one-sided? Yep. So you can go ahead with that motion, or if you have a greater range of motion, I'm pretty stiff within my shoulders, so often I don't raise them up higher, but you can. So raising them up to shoulder height, but going a bit higher up, so almost like your arms are in a V or diagonal, and lower them back down. So there's the upper body portion of your jacks, either one-sided, two-sided. You can go quite quickly to get that blood flowing. Okay, I can feel that in my shoulders. Now I'm going to go legs only. So if you want to add another set of kind of working those arms in here, you can. I'm just simply going to start by placing my hands on my hips. I am going to step my right leg out to the side. I'd probably say 6 or 8 inches. It's going to depend on how tall you are and your flexibility. And I'm going to step my left leg out to the side 6 or 8 inches. So this way I'm kind of in a V on the bottom half of me. Okay. And then I'm going to step that left leg back into center, right leg back into center. There's the lower part of your jack. Okay, so we can combine the upper and the lower. So stick with either or I'm going to raise my arms out to the side as I step my right leg out to the side, then my left leg out to the side, then I lower my arms as I bring those feet in, back to center. Okay, there is a deconstructed jack. You can do upper body, lower body, both. Let's kick it up a notch. So if you don't like jumping, stick with any of those variations. Otherwise, I'm going to jump both legs at the same time out to the side as I raise my arms up, and then I'm going to bring it back in. So hopping the legs in and lowering the arms. Okay, so I'm going to go for 8 to 10. Here we go. Out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. I can feel my heart rate come up. Okay, so knowing that you can choose your variation sometimes gives us that bit more of a feeling that the exercise is a little less scary. So there is your deconstructed jack. You can say you do know jack. Rotator cuffs. This is an area of injury for a lot of people, especially cane users. Lots of times, if you're a wheelchair user too, the shoulders take a beating. Guide dog handlers, I do hear this a lot if they have a dog that has a lot of pull, so we have to condition those shoulders. So we're going to stretch gently the rotator cuff, and it feels good. So sitting or standing, nice and tall. My arms are down at my sides, palms facing the outside of my thigh. I'm going to use my left arm. You start with whichever arm makes you happy. I'm going to bend my arm at the elbow, okay? Raising that arm up, so just the lower, like I'm going to shake hands with someone. So it's just the lower part of my arm or my forearm. My upper arm is staying exactly down at my side, so think of hinging at the elbow, bring that hand up like you're going to shake hands. And you want to open that arm to the side, gently keeping that elbow tucked in and close. And open like you're opening a door and close. What we're going to do is go ahead with the same thing on the other side. Okay? So my right arm, I'm bending at the elbow, like I'm going to shake hands, keeping that elbow tucked in. It's at 90 degrees. Now I'm opening that arm out to the side, just gently, and closing. And you can go ahead and give me 2 more of those, and then join me in a few moments where we're going to put some of those Jack principles to the test.
Get ready to exercise. Healthy at Home with Bobbi Janzen. We'll be right back. Let's exercise. Healthy at Home with Bobbi Janzen is back.
Did you know that you could do a squat jack? It's a thing, crossing a jumping jack and a squat to create a different type of exercise. We are not going to do that today, so if you had this moment of panic, don't worry. But we are going to do a squat with a jump. I'll have an arm exercise, and you can see how perhaps when you envision that warm up and that jumping jack, how you could maybe incorporate it to a squat. That may be something for a later time. So instead, if you don't want to do the squat, if you want to work on, you're focusing on that upper body, or you want a seated option, there's all kinds of reasons we can kind of deconstruct or change this exercise. I want you to think of the part of the jumping jack that we did where it was just arms only and out to the side. So it's called a side raise. Let's turn this around on you. So I'm gonna, my arms down at my sides, I'm standing. I'm gonna check my posture, abs are nice and tight. My spine is in line like a stack of blocks, okay? So when I mean I'm going to flip that jumping jack arm where you came out to the side and back down, we're gonna turn our palms. So we're gonna turn our hands so our palms are facing away from us. You can use dumbbells here, but I'd go light, okay? Because these muscles, we warmed up that rotator cuff. These muscles are a little weaker when we rotate out. So you're gonna raise your arms, keeping your arms kind of straight. Don't lock your elbows. You're going to bring them straight out to the side at about shoulder height, and with control, lower them back down. There is your upper body variation that'll work your arms, your back, and your shoulders. I'm going to go, I was going to say run into a squat. I'm not running into any squat. We are going to do a squat if you want to focus on the lower portion. Lots of exercises we can combine, squats and bicep curls and lunges and presses. It can get kind of fun. But we're just going to go with this squat. I'm stepping my legs slightly wider than hip distance, so remember your upper body variation. You decide that squats are just not for you, or you want to focus on that upper body. I'm going to turn my toes out just slightly to each side. Think of it reminds me of like duck feet, the thought of duck feet, but very, very slightly. So I'm going to do a squat, and then I'm going to add a jump. You have choices. Like I said, we're going to deconstruct if we need to and if we want to. So I'm going to imagine sitting down on a stool or a chair, but I don't want to sit. I just want to touch my butt down and come back up. My glutes or my butt muscles are tight as if I'm holding a Kleenex between my butt cheeks. That makes me laugh thinking of that all the time. And then I'm going to come up and show you how to add the jump. Okay, your arms can be down at your sides. They can be at your heart. They can be out to your sides. They can be above your head. Go with what feels good. You can mix it up a little bit. You can hold a dumbbell, 1 or 2. I like to hold 1 often with my 2 hands on each of the round, 1 hand on each of the round ends. So I am going to keep my chest up, and I'm going to sit back down. My knees are not going over top of my toes. Okay, so that means I'm bringing my bum back and imagining I'm just going to touch that chair. My chest is staying up, so we're not folding at the hips, and come back up. Now I need to move. I'm pretty stiff right now. I'm just going to make my feet a little bit wider for the next one. So I'm dropping it down and coming up, squeezing your butt the whole time. And on the up, it's important to really give it a squeeze and keep your abs tight. Now, get ready with your squats. Get ready with your side raises. We're having with your palms flipped. I'm going to show you how to add the jump. Okay? And then I'll probably drop back to, so I can still talk, just to regular squats. So I'm going to, and ready with whichever variation you are, I'm going to drop down. I'm going to come up. And it's a little bit of hop as I drop back down, okay? And drop back down into a squat. It's a jump up. So keep doing those side raises or those squats, and you have 4, 3, 2, and 1. First set, arms, legs, whatever makes your heart happy, done. I'm going to start getting out of breath as I do squat jacks, which is probably a little bit good for me to get some more cardio in. I'm stepping out. I'm going to probably mix it up both so I can talk to you as we go. I don't know if you ever tried talking to someone when you run. It's quite a talent. So when you get your heart rate up, it can be something. So if you're doing arms and you want to add light weights, use light. Otherwise, we're going to come down into the squat and back up and down. And my chest is up. I'm looking forward, maybe slightly towards the floor, but very, very slightly. And down and up and down. And I'm going to jump for the last 4, okay? Hop, hop, and my arms just swing naturally. And we got one more. And up. Ooh. Okay, I'm going to catch my breath. You're going to feel that in your arms. If you're doing arms, you're going to feel that in your legs. If you're doing the squat or the jump. We're going to go into our very last set. I'm going to just squat this one so I can talk a little more. You don't hear me heavy breathing the whole time. So get ready for those arm raises to the side or your squats. Now, to check the width of your squat. So having your legs a little bit wider than hip distance, you can place your hands on the outside of your hips and slide your legs down, or your hands down the outside of your legs to feel where your legs are at. They should be a little wider than hip distance, okay? And if you're finding it tough to squat down, widen your stance a little bit. If it feels too awkward, narrow it a bit. Some people find it easier to do a jump squat and a narrow squat. So setting up that squat, I hope you didn't drop the Kleenex that was between your butt cheeks. And if you're doing this seated, you can also pretend to hold the Kleenex in your butt cheeks. And we're going to bring it down for a squat and up. My knees are not going over the toes. And up, and down, and up, and down. We have 4 more squats. Down, and up. 3, and up. Dropping it down for 2, and up. Bringing it down. So when I say drop, it's with control. And up. I don't want you just dropping down to the floor. We'll save that for later. I'm going to talk you through a lunge, or we can choose to work the triceps. That's the beautiful thing. So I'll talk you through triceps first. If you would like to have a seated variation, I want to think of kind of a hinging motion with the knee for a lunge and of the elbow for a tricep kickback. So dumbbells are not seated or standing. Here's your upper body variation. I am going to do both arms at the same time. So my hands are at my sides, palms facing the outside of my thighs or holding onto dumbbells. I am going to bend the elbows and pull the elbows back behind me. Okay, so they're just below the rib cage. So I can feel with my wrists, my bottom ribs. Now I'm going to extend either one or both arms back behind me. So I'm going to straighten the arms, bringing those hands back behind me. Bend the elbows and bring the wrists and the hands back to that starting position behind the ribs. So straighten, bring them back, bend. Okay, so think of your elbows being behind you as you do them, what we call tricep kickbacks. We're going to move into the next exercise, which is a lunge. So I'm going to do this standing. Your seated variation is that tricep, so working on kind of that hinge motion. I'm going to take a big step forward. Now I'm going to cautiously say big. This is going to vary for every person. Now if your balance is a little bit wobbly, mine definitely is. Sometimes I'll place a chair beside me so the back of the chair is facing my side. That way I can just put my fingertips on the chair and it just gives me some balance. Okay, I've also been known to do these in the kitchen. So my fingertips are on the kitchen counter. It's like, what are you doing? So I'm going to take a big step forward with my right foot. So I want to have, think of a triangle with your lower body, and I'm going to step back with my left. So I've got a big V on the lower half of my body. So I have stepped forward with my left foot. So the heel of my left foot will line up, if I were to go and feel it, with the soft fleshy instep of my right foot. So that means my back foot has turned out just a little bit. Okay, and I know that I need to make mine wider because that's what works for me. Your hips, imagine your hips have headlights on them. So you want your headlights facing that front foot. Okay, if you're really tight in the calf muscle, which I am thanks to running on the treadmill, you can lift that heel just a little bit off the mat. But if it makes you feel off balance, your squats or your lunges just a little bit less of a motion. Okay, so keeping those hips squared forward, what we're going to do is you're going to bend your front knee to approximately 90 degrees, keeping your back leg straight but with a soft bend in the knee, not locked. Okay, so my balance is a little off, bear with me, you might hear me. So I'm going to bend that front knee, come down into a lunge. My heel definitely lifts in the back and come up. And I just noticed, because I could feel it, watch your front knee does not shoot over your toes. So if you were to feel, your shin and your knee should make that 90, not leaning over your toes. We're going to do that again, okay? Or go into your tricep kickbacks. Whoa. And lunge and straighten. So you're straightening your front leg, your back leg remains straight. And bending it to 90 in the front, my heel is lifted on that back foot and up. This is where I get wiggly. Oh, we're gonna have a woman down here soon. We're gonna go for 3 more. Down and back up and down and back up. And 1 more. And down and back up. Whew. We're gonna do 2 sets to each side. These make me warm up quite well because we're working larger muscle groups. So let's stick with, because I feel like being a meanie, we're going to stick with that same side. So I've kind of stepped back to center to shake out my legs. And I'm going to step my left foot into that big step forward again. Okay, my heel is lining up with the soft fleshy instep of my back foot. If I were to check, my body is nice and tall, so my upper body core is tight, and I'm going to bend that front knee to about 90, and up, and down, and up, and down, and up. And we got 3 more. Down, and up, and down, and up. So what I want you to do is switch sides. You're going to do that on the other side. Give me 2 sets, and we'll be back with more exercises.
Keep moving. Healthy at Home with Bobbi Janzen. We'll be right back. Back to the exercises on Healthy at Home with Bobbi Janzen.
We've used the jumping jack. We've kind of broken it down. We've tried some different exercises that involve the various joints and raises and lunges and kickbacks. We're going to take that jack and combine it into a plank. Now, this is where I said, just like the jump squat, don't get afraid, because we're going to break this down. You can take what piece you want wherever. We're here to meet you where you're at. That's what I want to do. So wherever you're at today, that's great. Okay, so join me in that space. So if you'd like a seated variation, you can do a hold off of a wall. So if I take my arms, or it's like a push-up position, to a wall or a table, and I'm seated and I can tighten my abs, or I can sit nice and tall in a chair, take my arms out in front of me. I'm going to bring my hands together, clasp my hands, they're at shoulder height, and I'm going to hold them there. And while I hold them there, I'm going to tighten my core. Okay, think of tightening that belly, and you can lower it down after a count of 8, and repeat. So working on the core, you can raise a stick, a cane, a mop, just take the mop end off in front of you too and do the same thing. It replaces the clasped hands. I'm going to come onto all fours and work on a plank and its variations. And we'll work up to a plank jack or not. So your upper body variation you have, I'm going to come onto my hands and my knees on all fours on the mat. My hands are directly below my shoulders, my arms are straight. My knees are directly below the hips, the tops of my feet are on the floor. So this is kind of like a tabletop position. This is one that I have to be very careful if I'm ever in a home because my grandson thinks this is great. This is going to be a game because I'm going to crawl all over the floor like this. Not happening. So if we want to get into a variation of a plank, I'm going to scooch my knees back behind me. So I'm going to move them away, okay? I'm going to move them further away so that my core has to do the work. So my back becomes a little more like a ramp than a table. So there's one way you can do your plank. You can move them further, yet the tops of my feet are still on the floor, okay? I'm just adjusting my hands, so make sure your fingers are spread. Palms are nice and flat. Now I'm going to curl my toes under on both feet, and I'm going to straighten my legs, so lifting myself into a full plank or what looks like a ramp position. So I'm straightening my legs and lifting them up off the mat. I'm in a ramp-like position. Now make sure you're tightening your core and breathing and release. So we're going to do this again. If you're just beginning to do plank, so your isometric hold, or your hold, you're going to do for about 8 counts or 8 breaths. If you're just beginning to do a plank, see what you got. You got 5 breaths in you, 6. Often we want to start at about 10 to 15 seconds, 3 sets, and work your way up till, well, wherever you might be. So we're going to do a plank again. We're going to go for 5 breaths. I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to show you how to add in that plank jack. So if you're going to go into your hold and squeeze those abs, please do so now. I'm coming into that tabletop position, all fours. Okay, watch you're not forcing where your wrists and your palms kind of meet into the mat. Spread the pressure directly and evenly through your hands. That will keep your wrists safe. And sometimes doubling, I have a fitness mat here. If I double that up, that will also help underneath the wrists. So I'm going to bring my knees further back behind me. Whoa, that gets a little tougher. Okay, I'm going to curl my toes under. You don't have to. You can stay in this variation here. Tighten the core. It's all about the core. Now I'm going to straighten the legs, lift the knees off the mat. And in that ramp-like position, it gets much harder to talk. So let's try for 5 breaths. Keep holding if you're in that hold position. Nice big breaths. Are you shaking yet? And bring your knees down. Now, at any time, you are welcome to come out of that plank. You are not locked into plank. I play little games with myself. Can I hum like a bar of a song as long as I'm still breathing? I like to take my mind off of exercises that I might find. Plank is less enjoyable for me. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I also play heavy metal music to get through exercises that I find a little more difficult, like plank. So if you're going to go back into that hold, we're going to get set up for that. Otherwise, any variation of the plank you choose. But I'm going to talk you through a plank jack. So I'm in all fours. Hands are shoulder distance apart. Knees are hip distance apart. Now I'm going to bring my tops of my feet are on the floor. I'm going to extend my knees back further so I'm in more of a ramp-like position. Now, by all means, feel free to stay here. If you want to give this a shot, make sure you're good and stable. Your core is tight. Everything feels good and secure. I'm going to come up into that ramp-like position, okay? So if you're doing the upper body, do that hold. Now, if this is enough, stay here. Otherwise, I'm going to step my left leg out to the side, like the bottom half of a jumping jack. And I'm going to step it in. Right leg out to the side, step it back in. Left out, in, out. Oh, it looks like we lost a weight. That's why I always say to clear your space, because I just kicked a weight, so make sure your spaces are clear. So you can also hop it out and hop it in and hop it out. Holy cow, and hop it in. Good job, you guys. All right, so we are going to work our core. I'm going to come down onto my back on the mat, but you can also do this sitting. So if you've been doing plank, you're probably all good and sweaty and are looking forward to a bit of a break, and those holds as well. Well, it's not going to get any easier. So I'm going to come down onto my back on the mat. If you'd like to do this sitting, by all means, I'm going to talk you through both variations. I might have a little rest here. This is lovely. Okay, so I'm on my back on the mat. My feet are flat on the floor. My knees are bent. So if you're seated in a chair, I want you to sit up nice and tall. Imagine your back is a stack of Legos. Now, if you are doing this lying down, you might want to remove your ponytail if you have one. Sometimes that gets a bit lumpy. So the motion is going to be the same whether you're lying or seated. I'm going to take my arms and I'm going to bring them behind my head. My thumbs are underneath that bony ridge, which is called your occipital bone. So it kind of fits in there nicely. The important part here is to keep your elbows open to the sides. If you squeeze them in, you often start pulling your neck and your head. This isn't about pulling your head. This is about using your core muscles to do the rotation. This is the upper part of a bicycle crunch, or basically like a crossover crunch or a cross. So I'm going to hold a big, well, let's start with our abs first, because after that plank, mine just kind of went bleh. So think of resetting your abs. Your core is nice and tight. If I were to drop something on your belly, it's that tightening reflex. So you're going to have them nice and tight. Where are your shoulders? Mine are up by my ears, so I'm going to relax my shoulders down the back. If you're lying down, you want to make sure that there's very little space between your back and the mat without forcing it. So imagine you're just kind of melting in towards that mat. And if you're seated, that nice tall stack of blocks. Thumbs behind the head. I'm going to nod my chin towards my chest like I'm holding a big, juicy orange, as we call them in my house, belly button oranges or navel oranges. I'm going to come up into a crunch, which is like a C with the upper body. So I'm just coming up. My shoulder blades that's as high up as I'm coming. Okay, so you're going to make a C if you're seated. Now I'm going to cross over the body. So I'm rotating the body. My right elbow is crossing over to point towards my left knee. It doesn't quite get there, but it's moving in that direction. Back to center. And now I'm going to cross over using my core to rotate and cross. My left elbow is pointing towards my right knee and center. I'm going to come down and reset, but that's the motion I'd like you to do either seated or standing. You might have a greater kind of a C curve in a seated position, you might not. So I'm going to come up into that C and over and center. I'm not pulling the head. Over and center. And over and center. Oh, my elbows are creeping in. Over and center. Over and center. Let's go for one more. Over and center. Excellent. So you can let those hands go, relax down. Now this is where I feel it is directly around my belly button. It shouldn't be pain, but you can feel that it's working. My shoulders feel a little bit warm too, so having that big stretch can kind of help in the shoulders. So we're going to do another set. Okay, remember not to pull on the head. So between sets, when I'm doing abs, my abs just totally let go. So I'm resetting. So try and keep them somewhat activated between sets if you can. It's really tough. Hands behind the head, thumbs underneath that bony ridge. That's kind of like your marker point. Big juicy orange under your chin. And we're going to come up into a bit of a C with the upper body. So I'm just lifting up to about my shoulder blades. Okay, if that's too much, you can come down a little bit. It's going to depend on your flexibility here. Now keeping those elbows open, I'm going to rotate through the body and bring my right elbow towards my left knee and back to that center type of position in that C curve. Left elbow to right knee and center. Right to left and center. And across. Ooh, that side I feel more than the other. And center. And cross. And center. Good work. Give me one more to each side, you guys. Across. And center. Whew. And across. And you can relax because we are going to grab, well, at least I'm going to grab a drink and we're going to cool down in a few moments.
Keep moving. Healthy at Home with Bobbi Janzen will be right back. Welcome back to Healthy at Home with Bobbi Janzen.
I would say we totally earned this cool down. Whew. So I hope you had a chance to grab a nice drink of water. If not, make sure you hydrate after. It's really, really important, especially if you've been jumping and moving around the way we have been today. So we're going to do a side stretch, seated, standing. I'm on the floor, cross-legged. If you want to sit in a chair, whatever works for you. I like to say that you should have something beside you, whether it's the floor or the side of the chair or a table, just to balance your one hand on as we reach over top of our head. So my hands are down at my sides. Like I said, I'm cross-legged, crisscross applesauce. You can sit with your feet on the floor. I'm going to raise my right arm way up to the sky. So it's coming out at my side, all the way up above my head. My fingertips are pointing towards the ceiling. My left hand, or my other hand, because it doesn't matter which one you start with, my hand is on the floor just for support. Now I'm going to bend to the side. So both my arm and my body are leaning towards the side where that hand is on the floor. So getting a stretch in the side. So imagine you're between two slices of bread. So you're not leaning forward and you're not leaning back. You're like this perfect PB&J sandwich. You're between those pieces of bread or between two panes of glass, getting that stretch. And come up and release. Now, just to keep it interesting, if you happen to be on the floor crisscross like me, change the cross of your legs. That's going to feel weird, but it's going to keep us balanced instead of doing the same thing all the time. Now my hands are down at my side, so if you're in your chair, we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Can you do it standing? Absolutely. So now I'm going to reach my left arm. I'm going to sweep it out to the side and all the way up over my head. My fingertips are pointing towards the sky. And now I'm going to do what we call a side bend. So I'm going to lean towards the side. It's kind of like the shape of a moon or the shape of a banana between those two panes of glass, or like I've perhaps mentioned before, I relate things to food, so that between those two pieces of bread. That feels really good. So your hand that's on the floor or the chair, watch you're not pressing into the shoulder. Relax that bottom shoulder. This is about relieving stress. And release, shake it out. Shake your arms out. You can give your chest, like your torso, a shake, your whole upper body, kind of wiggle it around a bit. We're going to move on to the lower body because we've jumped, we've lunged. Now, if you want an upper body variation, I'm going to have you stretch the backs of your arms to your triceps because you work those if you chose that instead of a lunge. So you're going to take your arms, they're at my sides. It's a little harder when I'm in a crisscross position. I'm going to raise them straight out in front of me, shoulder height. Now, my palms are facing each other. What I'm going to do is take my right arm and reach across and grab my left arm because I'm going to guide it across my body. Okay? Getting a stretch behind the arm. Don't turn your body, just guide your arm across like you're just kind of giving it a gentle pull and stretching it across your chest. So that'll be your seated variation, and make sure you do both sides because you would have worked both triceps. Once again, it can be done one-sided as well. I'm going to stretch my glutes. So it's a very polite and technical term for stretching your butt muscles from squats and lunges. So I'm going to sit on the floor. I've got my knees bent and my feet are flat on the floor. I'm going to just turn a little bit so I have more of myself on the mat. Okay, so I'm going to take my hands, and I like to call this like TV watching or lounging position. They are they're either beside me or slightly behind, so I'm just putting some of that pressure or weight into my hands. Now I don't know about you, my legs are a little shaky. I'm going to take my right foot and cross it onto my left thigh. So my right ankle is on top of my left thigh. Holy Hannah, into kind of a figure 4 shape, or half of a diamond. And you can adjust where your foot is to see how much of a stretch you want. So yeah, I can feel that. I'm going to release that. We'll set up for the other side. So you're going to switch arms or switch legs. But what I want you to do is keep going. So switch sides. I want you to stay moving, stay motivated, but stay with us for the interview portion up next.
Coming up on Healthy at Home, Bobbi hears tips on organizing your home. We're back with health and wellness tips on Healthy at Home with Bobbi Janzen.
Welcome back, and I'm here with Natasha Salveson, and we're going to talk all things organizing? Organization?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what you do, Natasha.
So I'm a professional organizer. It's kind of a funny term. It seems made up, but there are many organizers all throughout Canada and the United States. And I help people just kind of create calm in their homes. We work with all different types of people. So young families who have, not enough time, too much stuff. We help them create organizing systems in their home. We work with seniors who are downsizing and helping them through that whole process, estate organizing and packing and unpacking families that need help.
Who couldn't use to be a little more organized? I could definitely use you in my life, I'm sure. Tell me what inspired you to start doing this type of work.
It's something that I've just done my whole life. So as a little girl, I would go into my brother's rooms and I would throw out the junk that I didn't think that they needed anymore. I don't do that for clients. I always ask their permission. But yeah, it's just something that I've always naturally had. My dresser, everything had a place on it, and I've just taken it into my adult life, and I saw a need for the service, and yeah, I just ran with it.
I think I'm a little bit of organized chaos.
Okay, yeah.
So where would someone start? This sounds like it could be a very big, daunting project. How could someone just get started without being so overwhelmed?
Yeah, I mean, most people who contact me are feeling very overwhelmed, and oftentimes when they call, they say, like, I need help, before they even say anything else. And so that is a very common feeling with everybody. So what I would suggest is, like, if you're wanting to try to tackle something on your own at home, is just focus on one little space at a time and kind of give yourself, half an hour time. And let's say, like, you want to focus on your junk drawer, for example. Just take everything out and sort it into piles, get rid of the things that you don't need anymore, and then put it back in like in little containers, like all your batteries go together and all the pens go together. And so, I mean, you can break things down into little projects to make it more manageable for yourself.
It definitely sounds much more doable. I'm thinking of my pantry right now, and I'm just having a little bit of panic.
Yeah, I've had people call me, they've taken everything out of their pantry and then it's all over the ground and they're like, I need your help. I can't put this back. But I mean, if you were to do it yourself at home, you could just focus on one area. So like baking. So if you like to bake, for example, you could just like organize all the baking stuff. So if you don't have your flour in containers, I always suggest to do that for certain things. So you could get some containers for your flour and your sugar, and then have a basket for all of your like nuts and chocolate chips and stuff like that. And so you could just do it like section by section to make it more manageable for yourself. If you were to hire a professional organizer, they would come in and do it in a couple of hours.
Ooh. There are definite benefits there. I'm still stuck on the basket of chocolate chips and nuts. Yum.
Yeah.
So what does this do for people's mental health even?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people feel like a weight released after we leave, or even if you were to do it yourselves. Oftentimes, like, people will have us come in for a 3-hour session and we'll work on one space, and then they often feel like motivated to continue that because they see the difference that it made in their home. We take away donations, so that's like literally weight leaving your home too, and people just feel lighter. If you're more organized, you're not going to buy things that you already have, because if you're disorganized, you can't find things, you're buying duplicates. We find that lots of times in clients' homes. Or, if you have a hard time finding your keys or your cell phone, like, you just need a simple place where it goes every day, and you have to create a habit with that.
I can promise you that when my husband hears all this, he's going to remind me that I have to put my keys and my phone in a simple place that's easy to find, because often it's tough. So that being said, and you have this place where you can find things, what happens when you have little ones around that move said things?
Oh yeah, I know. It's tricky, because if you live in a family with, children and spouses, and one person is really dedicated to being organized, it almost falls on them. However, Like you just need to create easy, super easy systems for everyone. So for your kids, for example, you know, like maybe reducing too. That's a big thing. A lot of people have too much stuff. So let's reduce the amount of toys your kid has in their room or their toy room, even rotate them seasonally so there's not as much to put away and clean up after they're done playing. I often recommend that to clients who have lots and lots of toys, or letting go of the things that, you know, they've outgrown. That's a big thing with kids, is like getting rid of the things that they don't, like the clothing that doesn't fit them anymore, or the sports gear, or the toys that they've outgrown, is like, let's pass that on to somebody else who could use that.
Or having to do it when they're not there because it's suddenly their favorite.
I know. Yes, we try to do that. A little bit sneaky, but.
So for someone who maybe has, we're going to start with somebody like myself who has very low vision. How could this make my world a little easier?
You know, we're working actually just in the past couple of weeks with a senior client who was moving, and he had low vision as well. And I actually have a team that works with me, and she was telling me that when she was packing things, he was asking, like, what are you packing right now? And she brought it over to him so he could feel it. Then he would know what it was. And he'd say, okay, you know, this is something that I could donate. Or this is something that I want to take to my new space. I'm actually going tomorrow to help him hang pictures. So yeah, we work with people of all sorts of abilities, and we adapt to whatever, you know, is going to suit them best.
So creating space, especially if someone has a mobility impairment as well, might be really great, just to free up their physical space as well as anyone's mental space.
And for example, like when we're working with a senior client who's moved into a smaller space, their kitchen's different, you know, we always ask them, like, what is your, you know, your arm mobility? Like, can you reach this second shelf to be able to get, you know, your water glasses? If not, we have to just use all the bottom shelves, and then the second shelf is stuff for things that they wouldn't frequently use. So we ask lots of questions like, how often are you using this? Like, can you actually bend over and look in that bottom cabinet? Is that a possibility for you? So
it's tailored to each.
Yes, it's very specific. Like, we have an initial consultation to determine their specific needs, and then we create a plan from there.
If I could pick your brain for one, like maybe your biggest tip that you would give people, what would it be?
The biggest tip is everything in your home needs a home, and it needs to go back there when you're done with it. So your keys need a home, and then when you come home, you need to put the keys right back there so you can find them easily, and everybody knows where it is.
That sounds like something definitely I need to take into account. I want to thank you so much for sharing your organization tips and your time with us, and we will see everybody next time.
Produced by Honeycut Studios. Host Bobbi Janzen. Accessibility consultant Sierra Roth. Special thanks to Natasha Solveson with Home Free Organizing. Integrated Described Video Consultant Ron Rickford. Content Development Specialist Jim Crisco. Supervising Producer Jennifer Johnson. Director Programming Lisanne Gagne. Director Content Development and Production Kara Nye. Vice President Content Development and Operations John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Copyright 2024 Accessible Media Inc.
An AMI original production.